Hi families, this week we are working on week 6 packet. This week's story is a story about lines, the different kinds of lines. So it looks like they talk about straight lines right here in this paragraph. They talk about curved lines, and they talk about thick lines, thin lines, zigzag lines, and different kind of lines. That's basically what this whole story is about. The next part, the next page is the questions. Remember, you can read each question and then look at each answer, find the correct answer back in the story. You can do process of elimination where you say, okay, well, A definitely looks like it. Let me read the rest and move on. Maybe B is the answer. You read B and then you're like, no, that's definitely not it. So you might cross that off and move on to the next one. But what I'm asking is that you look at each possible answer before you make your final decision and make sure you can prove it from the story. On the next part, it is the written answer, the short written part. So you're going to read the question, what they're asking, and then in full sentences, make sure you answer that. For number 8, it says, what is one thing that a wavy line may communicate? Communicate means tell you. So you might say something like, a wavy line tells me this. For number 9, it says contrast a zigzag line and a wavy line. Contrast means to tell how they are different. And the next portion on that says support your answer with evidence from the text. So I suggest you go back and then talk about how the zigzag line is different than the wavy line. For number 10, it tells you down below to support your answer with evidence from the text. Again, that is something you want to go back, reread the story, and find the answer within the actual writing of the story. For the next part, it is a writing prompt. It says, write about a time you are afraid of something. How did you overcome this fear? So there are actually 2 parts to this. It's easier to write on lined paper, just like I've told you in the past. For this, I would think of a small moment story, somewhere where you could introduce with a hook and you're talking about one moment and then you're supporting that. Just kind of thinking back, I can think of times I was afraid when I was younger. I was always afraid there was something under my bed that was going to grab me, or I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to get my work done. There's just different kinds of things you could write about here, but whatever you do, remember to use the 5-hand rule for details. So you want to have setting, internal thinking, physical description, character action, tiny piece of dialogue. For the next part, you want to solve the equation on both sides before you decide which symbol to use in the middle. You're using a greater than, less than, or equal to symbol. So you need to think to yourself, 6 times 3, that's 18. You can even write that down below. 4 times 4, 16. And then you decide which is bigger, which is small, if it's greater than, less than, or equal to. So I can say to myself, 18 is greater than 16. So I'm basically just figuring out the equation both sides before I start. You can even write on there and then decide which one's greater than, less than, or equal to. Remember, greater than sign, I know you've learned this before, but the bigger, it opens up to the bigger number. For the part that says picnicking signs, it says the multiplication and division signs are having a picnic. While they are gone, it's up to you to fill in the missing multiplication or division sign in each equation. So what you have to do is decide, would I put a multiplication symbol or a division symbol between these 2 numbers where the blue box is. So I'm going to think to myself, well, 8 groups of 2, if I have 8 groups with 2 per group, that equals 16. Now I think to myself, well, what if it were division and it was 8 divided by 2? Well, that would change the whole thing, and I would have to count by 2s until I get to 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 4. So 8 divided by 2 would be 4, and that's definitely not the answer. So that tells me I would want to have a multiplication symbol between that one. Okay, let's look at the next one. This one says 3 with a space, 7 equals 21. Well, I'm going to think to myself, 3 groups of 7 would be 21, so I know that's true. 3 divided by 7, let me think about that. Well, if I have 3 items and I divide it into 7 groups, that's impossible. So I know that cannot be possible to have 3 divided by 7. That I can't even do that. So that's definitely times. All right, let's look at the next one. One thing to notice about this one, remember when you do division, you start with a total number. This one has a pretty big number. That could be a total number. Well, if I had 24 groups of 4, that would be 24, 24, there's a group of 24, 24, and 24. 4, 8, 12, 16, I would carry the 6. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, that'd be 96. 24 times 4 would be 96. That doesn't look right to me. So let me think again now. So now if I have start with 24 things and then divide them into 4 groups and put 1 equally in each group, I could skip count by 4 until I get to 24. 4, 8, 12, 14. Yep, that would be 6. Yep, that would be 6. So that's definitely division. And remember, division is the inverse of multiplication. If I say 6 times 4, that would be 24. That would, I double check myself, so that's division for sure. For the next one, the next math one, it says, for each picture, write the multiplication problem shown. So rows go across. It says how many rows? They go this way. So this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. 7 rows in this first one. How many columns? Remember, columns go up and down. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 7 rows with 5 columns, or 7 rows with 5 items. Well, now they want to know the total number of blocks. So to figure that, I would say, well, 7 rows times 5 per row equals 35. So your answer there would be 35. On to the social studies portion. And something I noticed about the social studies in this packet was that it went backwards. So it looked to me like the answers were before the actual work part. So you might want to skip ahead a few if they're actually ran that way when you get them, and start with this graphic organizer. And what it does is it tells you you're going to be learning about how the geography we've already studied interacts with the economics. So we said that geography was the study of places and how people interact with the environment, and economics is the study of how people use resources to produce goods and services that people need or want. And then we also talked about the different resources that are natural, human, and capital. So this next portion is going to bring it all together, and the answers are actually in the packet if they are ran like the one that I looked at. And you want to go back and start with this and then move on to the overview or the important points section. This was the next part that came with the social studies. This is the big ideas card that, again, tells you everything you're going to study. And I would look at this before you do the worksheet. This is what the worksheet looks like. You notice you have the worksheet for the student or for your child to fill in here because it's empty here. You can actually fill this portion in. So it says what kind of resources are needed to produce a car. They need you to think of what natural resources, and you can list them, what human resources would be needed, and what capital resources would be needed. As far as the science goes, it seems pretty self-explanatory. They ask you to read the portion at the top, look at the charts and the tables, and then make a check by the statements that you think are true. And then they give you the investigation at the bottom that you could try. So everything about these seem to be pretty self-explanatory. So it seems like the packet is pretty easy this week. I'm hoping for you. If you have any troubles, remember, you can email me or you can get a hold of me through the Remind app. And I miss you guys.